All right, in Plant List 5, we will be discussing Pachysandra, rhododendrons, yews, and a couple more that we'll get into. The first plant that we will be discussing is Cryptomeria japonica Yoshino, common name Japanese Cryptomeria. It's in the family Cupressaceae. It has a light preference of full sun and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The foliage of Cryptomeria japonica Yoshino are lime green to blue-green needles. These are evergreen. The needles are sharply pointed and they're awl-shaped. They can be fragrant as well. And the needles are about 3/4 of an inch long, and they are spirally arranged. The foliage may become bronze in winter months. Here you could see the tips have bronzing. They are bronzed, and this is due to the winter months. The cones in Cryptomeria japonica Yoshino are spherical. They're about 1 inch in diameter, and they appear at the shoot ends, as you see in the photo. The habit of Cryptomeria japonica Yoshino is symmetrical, and it's pyramidal. And this typically matures to about 30 to 40 feet tall and 20 to 30 feet wide. Next, we get into Pachysandra. This is Pachysandra procumbens, common name Alleghany Pachysandra. It's in the family Buxaceae. It has a light preference of partial shade to full shade and a soil preference of moist, well-drained soils. The flowers of Pachysandra procumbens are very tiny and they're fragrant. They're sometimes greenish to white, but only white flowers. These flowers bloom in terminal spikes that are 2 to 4 inches long in early spring. Something else to note about Pachysandra procumbens is the flower stem emerges from the base of the stem, completely separated from the foliage stems. The foliage on Pachysandra procumbens has like a matte blue-green coloration. And the leaves are almost mottled, like a mottle coloration with purple to white mottling. The leaves are ovate leaves that are about 3 inches long, and they are coarsely toothed, as you can see on the margins. The leaves are also deciduous, and some are evergreen depending on the zone. They're deciduous in zones 5 to 6, and then semi-evergreen in zones 7 to 9. The habit of Pachysandra procumbens is shrubby to a ground cover which typically grows 8 to 12 inches tall and then spreads wide by rhizomes to form a dense carpet-like habit. The next Pachysandra species that we have is Pachysandra terminalis, common name Japanese Pachysandra. Still in the family of Buxaceae, and has a light preference of full shade to partial shade and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Pachysandra terminalis have tiny white flowers that are about 1 to 2 inches long. And the flowers emerge on terminal spikes in early spring, hence the species name terminalis, that terminal bloom that occurs. The foliage on Pachysandra terminalis are dense carpet of rich to dark green foliage. These leaves are oval and 2 to 4 inches long, and they primarily appear in whorls at the ends of the stems. The habit of Pachysandra terminalis is a shrubby evergreen ground cover, and this grows 8 to 12 inches high and spreads by rhizomes. Next, we have Pseudotsuga menziesii, common name common Douglas fir. This is in the family Pinaceae, has a light preference of full sun and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The cones are very unique on Pseudotsuga menziesii. They're uniquely forked cone bracts on the cone. And it distinguishes this tree from all other conifers because of this bract, right? The unique bract part of this cone. The cones are about 4.5 inches long and are pendulous with the protruding bracts. The foliage on Pseudotsuga menziesii are flat, linear, and they are arranged in a spiral form. These needles are dark green and are about 1.5 inches long, and they have a white band beneath the needle. Fallen needles leave a raised circular leaf scar on the twigs, and these needles can also be fragrant. And you can also note this species from the sharply pointed buds, as you can see in this photo. And this will separate this species from all other conifers from this sharply pointed bud. The habit of Pseudotsuga menziesii is they're very large conifers. These grow 50 to 80 feet tall. And they may even reach 300 feet tall in the wild. The habit here is narrow pyramidal shape with branching to the ground when they're young. And then trees become more cylindrical with age as they lose their lower branches. Next, we have Rhododendron Boudoir or Boudoir Azalea, Gable hybrid. This is in the family Ericaceae. Has a light preference of full sun to partial shade and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers on Rhododendron Boudoir are watermelon pink flowers. These flowers almost have a trumpet-like shape, and they're about 1.5 inches across, and these bloom in clusters in early mid-season of April to May. And these flowers are also mildly scented. The foliage on Rhododendron Boudoir has glossy green foliage, and this is also evergreen, so it persists throughout the winter. The habit of Rhododendron Boudoir is multi-stemmed, and this usually grows about 3 to 5 feet tall. It's compact, oval, and it's rounded, and it slightly spreads, typically maturing about 3 to 5 feet wide as well. Next, we have Rhododendron P.J.M or P.J.M rhododendron. This is in the family Ericaceae and has a light preference of partial shade and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Rhododendron P.J.M are lavender, rose to pink flowers. And then these flowers are in clusters, and they have 4 to 9 flowers per cluster. Rhododendron P.J.M blooms in April. The foliage of Rhododendron P.J.M are elliptic. They're entire, and they're almost leathery to touch. They're dark green, and they're about 2.5 inches long. And the foliage may turn purple during winter months, as you can see in the left-hand photo. The habit of rhododendron P.J.M is very compact and rounded. The leaves are small. This is still an evergreen shrub that grows about 3 to 6 feet tall. Next, we have Rhododendron X Gibraltar, or Gibraltar rhododendron. It's in the family Ericaceae. It has a light preference of partial shade and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Rhododendron Gibraltar are large ball-shaped flowers that are about 2 to 3 inches wide. And they are broad, and they are vivid orange petals like you see in this photo. The foliage of Rhododendron Gibraltar, they're very thin leaves compared to the other evergreen azaleas and rhododendrons. And this specific species drops their leaves in fall. The habit of Rhododendron Gibraltar is this is an upright shrub, a deciduous shrub that grows 4 to 6 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide. Now we have Rhododendron catawbiense, or Catawba RhododendronEricaceae. This is in the family Ericaceae. It has a light preference of full shade to partial shade and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers on Rhododendron catawbiense are funnel-shaped. They often have a lavender or pink coloration, and they may have some green to yellow-brown throat markings, as you see in the photo here. The flowers usually bloom mid to late spring, and they have a compact, showy terminal cluster. Each of these clusters contain 50 to 20 flowers. The foliage on Rhododendron catawbiense are alternate and elliptic to oblong. They're very glossy, and they have a dark green coloration to them. They're about 3 to 6 inches long. The habit of Rhododendron catawbiense is very large and rounded to spreading. It's multi-stemmed and broad-leaved evergreen that typically grows 6 to 10 feet tall. Next, we have Rhododendron maximum, or Rosebay RhododendronEricaceae. It's in the family Ericaceae. It has a light preference of full shade to partial shade and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Rhododendron maximum, they are about 2 inches across. They have like a rose purplish color to them, almost pink to white as well. And they often have olive green to orange spots on them. And you can see in the center of the flowers, you see that olive orange coloration to them. The flowers bloom in almost like an umbel inflorescence from June to early July. The leaves on Rhododendron maximum are large, right? Hence their name, maximum. They're leathery in the texture of them, and they're strap-like. They are also evergreen leaves. These are typically 4 to 8 inches long, and the undersides of them have a hint of a rusty orange coloration to them. The habit of Rhododendron maximum is very large and upright. They're more loose than other rhodies, and they're multi-stemmed. They're also late blooming. This is still an evergreen shrub that typically grows about 5 to 15 feet tall. Next, we have Rhododendron minus, or Piedmont Rhododendron. It's in the family Ericaceae. There's a light preference of full shade to partial shade, and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Rhododendron minus are very small, and they have a rose pink coloration. And then these are in large clusters as well. They have greenish spots on them, And you can see in the center of the flower, they have those green spots. And these are produced after new leaves develop. And then rhododendron minus leaves are much smaller than a lot of the other rhodies and azaleas that we already discussed, right? They're small, they're glossy, and they still have that leathery texture to them. And when they are crushed, the leaves are not fragrant, but they still have that rusty, scaly coloration beneath the leaves. The habit of rhododendron minus is an evergreen shrub still. We have 3 to 6 feet in width and 1 to 2 feet in height. And these are highly toxic if you would eat these. Moving on to Taxus, we have Taxus X media or Anglojap U. It's in the family Taxaceae. It has a light preference of full sun, partial shade, and full shade, and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The cones of Taxus X media in the female plants, they produce red berry-like fruits instead of cones. Each fruit has a single seed, almost completely surrounded by a fleshy, red substance. And all of these, the parts of the plant are poisonous if you ingest them, so do not eat Taxus media. The foliage on Taxus media are 2-ranked, pointed, oblong to needle-like. They are olive to a dark green coloration, and they are attractive all year around because they persist. The habit of Taxus media has height ranging from 2 to 20 feet tall, depending on the cultivar. And this is often shrubby and wide-spreading. Next, we have Taxus baccata, or English yew. In the family Taxaceae, it has a light preference of full sun, full shade, and partial shade, and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The foliage of Taxus baccata are flat needles that are still that 2-ranked. It's dark green, and the needles are 1.5 inches long. When the shoots first emerge, when they are juvenile, they emerge as a light green coloration, fading into that dark green coloration as the plant matures. The habit of Taxus baccata is a long-lived evergreen conical tree. This typically grows 30 to 60 feet tall. Older trees usually develop thick trunks with reddish-brown bark. Next, we have Taxus cuspidata capitata, or pyramidal Japanese yew. This is in the family Taxaceae. It has a light preference of full shade, full sun, and partial shade, and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The foliage of Taxus cuspidata capitata are linear and spiny tipped. They have a dark green coloration of them, and they're about 1 inch long. The needles are often have like a yellow coloration beneath the needle itself, and the foliage may turn to like a reddish brown to yellow in winter months. The habit is more in a form of pyramidal. It's very broad columnar at times, and it's a needled evergreen tree that is also multi-stemmed shrub as well. And this could grow to as much as 30 to 50 feet tall. Next, we have Viburnum Rhododendron, or Leatherleaf Viburnum. And it's in the family Caprifoliaceae. It has a light preference of full sun to partial shade, and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Viburnum Rhododendron produce a flat cyme of creamy white flowers, and this blooms in spring months. The fruits of Viburnum Rhododendron occur in fall, and they appear as red and then change to a glossy black. These berries often persist to the end of December. The foliage of Viburnum Rhododendron are ovate, oblong to ovate lanceolate leaves, and these are dark green. These are somewhat shiny and puckered as well. The habit of Viburnum rhytodiphyllum is an evergreen shrub, which will ultimately reach a height of 6 to 10 feet tall. Next, we have Viburnum x Pragenese, or Prague Viburnum. It's in the family Caprifoliaceae. It has a light preference of full sun to partial sun and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers in Viburnum x Pragenese have slightly fragrant to a creamy white flower in spring. And this also produces berries in early fall. And first appearing red, then changing to a glossy black as well. And these persist until December. The foliage of Viburnum x Pragenese are elliptic, dark green leaves that are 4 inches long. And this foliage is evergreen. The habit of Viburnum x Pragenese is an evergreen multi-stemmed shrub that typically grows about 8 to 12 feet tall, with a similar spread. Lastly, we have Vinca minor, and that's common periwinkle. This is in the family Apocynaceae, has a light preference of full shade to partial shade, and a soil preference of moist to well-drained soils. The flowers of Vinca minor are tubular. They are often lavender blue, and they look like phlox, right? This looks like a phlox flower. They're about 1 inch across, and they appear as flowers in the leaf axils in spring. And they continue to flower throughout summer into fall. The foliage of Vinca minor have a trailing stem with very smooth evergreen leaves. The leaves are 1.5 inches long, and they root at the nodes as they go along the ground and quickly spread as a ground cover. The foliage usually mounds to about 6 inches tall. The habit of Vinca minor, this is one of the most popular and widely used ground covers that you will find.